Good evening, everyone. I know everybody is eager to run home and watch the NBA Finals tonight.
Yes.
Nice, game one.
Not the way 30.
Who is the final?
Wait.
Some people may tell you it's blasphemous.
They made two finals. If it was us, what I do here, right? We used to have that. Eight years ago. Who cares? 8 years ago.
I don't want to talk to you.
All right. All right. Thank you all for coming and choosing to spend time together. We know you have many choices and places to go in the city and things to do today. So thank you for joining. Tonight I'm going to do like a hybrid. And oh, hi, Austin. I didn't see you in there. Yeah, let's see you on there. Nice to see you. We're going to combine a number of ideas tonight. We're going to try cover, maybe a little bit ambitious, but I'm going to try cover the stars, the zodiacs, otherwise known as the mazalot, and lights, the idea of what light means in Judaism, and fire. So I'll try, pun intended, blaze a trail tonight and get through all of this. And hopefully we'll come up with some interesting ideas just to the way we view things a little bit differently, and hopefully add some inspiration to the way we do some of our things. So as we know, like in time immemorial, I was thinking about it, I was preparing for the class. Lights have always been a focal point, and whether they're artificial or natural. And really, it's something that people really have an affinity towards, and it really draws people in. It's the ability of the eyes to internalize the visual, whatever you see visually, and then we draw pleasure from it. And whatever is in our sight. And we're going to have a holiday coming up on our Gregorian calendar. We spoke about calendars, so I want to be specific. July 4th. All about the fireworks, not just the sounds. You look at the sky and people are just so enamored with the different colors and shapes and that they come up with. And then we have all of the holiday seasons. So whether it be Hanukkah or the Christmas season where you drive up and down and you go there, some streets are better known for Christmas lights, and we go at night and the reflection against the snow. What is that about? What is it that enamors us so much to look at it? What is it that we draw from there? In terms of people like fireplaces, gazing at a full moon, stargazing, going to the planetarium, the aura of light seems to be something very attractive that God gave us. It's a visualization that we have through our eyes, and we internalize it, and it brings great pleasure to us. You go to some of the major cities like Las Vegas and Hong Kong and all over the world, and it's like at night, it's a giant Christmas tree everywhere you look. All of the advertising, and it lights up the entire block after block. So in each morning, I wanted just to bring a couple ideas to you. In the morning service, can you pay attention? So you're going to, tomorrow I expect you to have good kavanah. We make a special blessing for vision. You know how we make the 15 blessings in the morning? So there's a blessing called Pokeach Ivrim. We thank God for giving sight to the blind. So what does that really mean? So essentially, we could take this blessing and come up with a number of ideas. Number one is, very simply put, God gave us the use of our eyes to have benefit of everything that's in the world that we see, and to function, to have our five senses functioning at a high level, and to take pleasure, but allow us to function at a very high level. A deeper meaning is, as a cliche goes, as we've said to people, when sometimes somebody doesn't get something, we say a little bit sarcastically or tongue-in-cheek, remove your blinders. You're not seeing what I'm talking about, right? You say something that's to you as plain as day, and the person's looking at you and like, I don't see what you're talking about. Now, listen what he says. I don't hear what you're talking about, or I don't see what you're talking about. It's a visualization. You say something right away, they internalize, and they try to make sense of it, what you're saying. And you're saying like, you know, you're walking a very narrow path, you don't have your blinders are on, you're not paying attention. So when you say Pokeach Ivrim, you're saying thankfully to God that you're giving us the ability to not only to see, but to actualize what we're seeing, internalize what we're seeing. We're taking the blessings that we're looking at, whether it's lessons being learned, conversations, relationships that we're in, our business relationships, our personal relationships, our interaction with nature, which has been the theme of the last 3 classes, and internalizing. You look at something beautiful and you're able to internalize as opposed to seeing something and you go like, oh, so what, I saw the Grand Canyon, okay. Cross it off the list and now we're on to bigger and better things. What does it mean when you see something so magnificent? So we make that blessing each and every day. Nature is a vehicle not only to benefit mankind in day-to-day living, but it can be used to marvel at God's many creations, thereby bringing a person much closer to God. So if anyone has any doubts, look at God's fingerprint, so to speak, all over the world in our day-to-day living, and that you should draw inspiration. That's why Rav Nachman from Breslov, the very, very famous, the Baal Shem Tov's great-grandson, would meditate, but he'd go out into the fields to meditate because he drew from nature. He was able to listen to the birds and be by the trees. It's no coincidence that some of the greatest prophets that we ever had and leaders were all shepherds because they were in isolation. They were out with the animals. They took care of the animals. There was a lot of downtime. What did animals do after they're done eating? So the shepherd, once he made sure that they were safe, was able to meditate on God, on the interaction with God, and really delve into the mysteries of the Torah. So many of the greatest leaders that we've had, Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, Moses, David, and the list goes on, that they intentionally spent times in nature to use that as a vehicle to a connectivity point towards God. And when you see something wonderful, there's actually a text that you should say. And the text is, Ma gadlu masecha Hashem. How great and wonderful are your deeds, O Lord.
Ma'asecha?
Yeah, masecha, your creations. Ma gadlu, how great are your creations. So the idea is to keep your eyes and have them open. And I was reading and I came across a cute story with Moshe Dayan, but I think it's very applicable to our night story. So as you know, Moshe Dayan was lost an eye. He was very famous for his patch. The great warrior of Israel, the general that led Israel through many wars, was a big inspiration to many people. One day he was late to his office and he was speeding. And that's what you do to make up time. He had a heavy foot. Lo and behold, a policeman put him over. So the policeman comes around the side, roll down your window, takes a look, and he sees Moshe Dayan. Before he can even say a word, he says, I know who you are. I know you're very famous and you're a big hero, but you're not above the law. I understand you got to get places, but there's not one set of laws for every Israeli citizen and you. So without blinking an eye, the one eye that he had, I'll say it not to make fun, without blinking his eye, he said to him, let me ask you a question. Would you prefer that I looked at my speedometer or I looked at the road? Now think about that. We have the ability to multitask, but sometimes we're only looking at one or the other. And therefore, we waste a lot of opportunities because we are very set in our own ways, are not willing to reinvent. We're not willing to look beyond that which is in front of us, to use some imagination, and to use many of these sources that I'm using tonight. There's a wealth of material. You have a library next door with over last I heard from Rafi was 16,000. He gave me the number exactly, how many are archived and the digital library. You have so many wealth of resources, you don't even have to leave your home. There's so much to learn and see and incorporate. Now, we're told in regards to, we're going to speak about the stars for first set tonight. Abraham, as you know, was tested a number of times in the book of Genesis. God put him through a lot of rigors, as we know, up to 10 tests, including almost sacrificing his own son. At some point in time, Abraham's getting a little frustrated because he's getting a little bit older. and he doesn't see the succession plan. There's no children. We're told that Abraham, according to the Talmud, was a master astrologer. I cannot tell you how they did it, but they had the ability to see how the planets and the stars were aligned during different time periods, and they used that to divine the future. And he says to God, it's very nice that you're blessing me and all of these things, but I'm not gonna live forever. Who's gonna take over for me? According to the stars, I don't have children. I'm not meant to have children. By the way, the Talmud says that I believe Sarah didn't have a uterus. That was part of a miracle. Not only that she had a child at age 90, that she was able to get pregnant. That's why she couldn't get pregnant all these years. That was part of the miracle of her getting pregnant at an older age, plus the fact that she didn't have a uterus. So he said, there's no way I can have children. And God tells him, your destiny is well above the stars. Meaning, according to Jewish belief, we're not driven by what's called mazalot, the stars. Any horoscopes that you read or any of these astrologers you want to go to or psychics, we're not tied into that. We're above the teva. Above the teva means we're above the law of nature. And God says to him point blank, I'm telling you, you're going to have children, you're going to have children. It doesn't matter what you see and what you think you see. So it's very clear that basically the mazalot are non-effective. And we're also told we can change our own individual mazal. We say a prayer during the high holidays. There's 3 things that can break a decree. So whatever God has already lined up for you for the upcoming year, we say uteshuva, utefila, utzedakah. Giving charity, prayer, and repentance will annul a decree. So we can see that we can change whatever the outcome is. We don't know what the outcome is going to be for us, but we can see clearly that we can. There's a story told in the Talmud that there were 2 rabbis at the gates of Tiberias, standing right next to 2 non-Jews who were master astrologers. And this was a place where people would go, that entrance point where they'd go off to work for the day. They were going off to the fields to work. And the 2 astrologers say to the 2 rabbis, you see those 2? They point out 2 people. They're going to die today by a snake bite. And the rabbis don't comment one way or another, but what they do say is, we know what time they punch the clocks. We know what time they're done with the hours. We're going to wait at the gate to see who comes back. And lo and behold, after the work shift is over, the same 2 are back again. So the rabbis say, well, what happened, guys? You had a prediction. So I said, let's talk to these guys. What did you do today special? So they said, before we went out to work, we did the Shema and the Amidah. So prayer, remember I told you, is one of the 3 things that can annul the decree. So the astrologers immediately replied, clearly the mazalot, the stars, don't apply to the Jews. We have furthermore with Abraham, when he's gone through a number of his tests, God says to him at nighttime, he comes to him in a dream and says, I want you to look at the sky, count all the stars. It's impossible. Even to this day, we don't know how many. There's galaxies, there's planets. We're talking about hundreds of billions into the trillions of stars. God tells him, your generation will be as many as the stars. So last time I checked, Gabe, you're the number guy. You're the counter. What percentage are the Jews of the world?
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%. So clearly that hasn't come to fruition. So what does it mean when God says to Abraham, you're going to be as you're going to have as many children as you have stars? So the rabbis respond, the ultimate one, which is the star, which is the ultimate planet, which is the sun, which shines above them all, is the ones that are the Jewish people that will never go away. So it's not to be looked at in terms of quantity and say they're going to be 1 trillion Jews. Even, God forbid, the Holocaust, had not happened. We still would not be at the number. It would be a little bit higher, maybe double. I've seen some numbers. I saw a statistic recently. I don't know how they came to this conclusion, there were approximately 16 million Jews before World War II, and now we're about at the same number,
18 million.
right? Give or take. So clearly we would never be at that number, but our star, our planet is like the sun, which will eternally, that's the deal. That's why we do the Amid every day, which is the reminder to God, you made a promise to the forefathers. And at Bnei Yeshurun, you have the matriarchs. But the promise was actually made to the forefathers, which is you will be eternal. You, your children, your grandsons, say, Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, in the merit of the forefathers, we will be eternal. We've survived country after country, wherever we've been, where everybody knows our history. Wherever we've been thrown out. We've been almost annihilated, but not quite. So restarted again. And that's the story of the Jewish people. Rabbi Akiva, the very famous sage, the one that became a rabbi at the age of 40, was told by astrology, imagine someone tells this to you, your daughter is getting married, her wedding night, she's not going to survive. You're going to die by a snake bite again also. So he doesn't believe in it. So he believes in what I just said. He believes in the power of God. So she gets married and she gets back to her room and she takes off a brooch that she wore for the wedding and she puts it into the wall to hang it up so it should stay. It pierces the wall and there's a snake right behind the wall, and according to the Talmud, it went right into the snake's eye. I'm sorry if you haven't eaten dinner. I don't mean to cause you to lose it, but it kills the snake. In the morning, she finds it. So she goes and tells her father right away, is this an omen? What does this mean? Is my marriage going to be like this? What does this mean, Dad? You're the rabbi. So he said to her, he told her, what happened about the astrologer? But did you do something special yesterday? And she said, there was a very poor man. As you know, there were very poor people in those days that didn't have any food. And even if you weren't on the wedding list, they'd bring them food because there was such an abundance. So she took food personally herself as a bride, and she fed a poor man. And the rabbis tell us from there, tzedakah tatzu mimavet. Righteous deeds saved from death. So once again, we see another instance where it doesn't apply what we see in the stars. Now, I think we've spoken a little bit about this. I'm going to go in a little bit greater detail. We use this term very interchangeably, but almost incorrectly. When you say to someone, mazel tov, right? We start clapping, and it's a nice thing. We throw candies in some shuls. Some don't allow candies, some won't allow soft candies. But the idea is, and then Harriet gets them running up and clean up the bima in a New York minute, and then so we can continue on with the service very quickly. But mazel tov means you should have a good omen. People think it's a good luck, right? You're going to take a test, good luck. Now, the truth is, if you say good luck to someone before they take a test, when you think about it, you either know the material or you don't. How does me saying good luck to you all of a sudden some things came into your mind that you didn't know before, you didn't understand, or complicated theories and that you didn't know. You either were prepared or not, but it's something we use very loosely. Good luck or break a leg.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this tongue in cheek, when we came from South Africa in 1981, we hadn't quite learned all the American expressions. So when my father got his pulpit in Columbus, one of his first weekends, a congregant came over to him. He said, Father, a pleasure to meet you, and break a leg. And my dad got upset with him and said, break your head. What are you saying to me? Terrible things. I said, no, you don't understand. That's a means, it's a sign, a good omen, it's just an expression. But we use this term very loosely, but what it means is that the stars should be aligned for you. And we use that term very loosely. Right? When you talk about somebody, I guess the stars weren't aligned. There's a lot of truth to that. The stars, your mazal has to be aligned in the way God wants it to happen for you. And I've done this teaching before, but bears repetition. The Hebrew word for mazal is spelled with 3 letters, mem, zayin, lamed. So the rabbis teach The mem stands for makom, if you're in the right place. Zman means at the right time. And the limud means, and you have the right know-how to do with those two circumstances. How many times were people at a party with somebody they wanted to network with? And all you have to do is just go over. What's the worst case scenario? So I might say, like, call my office Monday morning, my secretary will get you in or whatever. Or some maybe would have given you 5 minutes of his time or her time. So if you're at the right place at the right time and know what to do with your inside ability, then you have mazel. Now, once again, we know there's a cute joke we use interchangeably that we say this term, what's the difference between a shlomazel and a shlomil? But those are all from the word, right? What is a shlomazel? A shlomazel means shum mazal, means he doesn't have any fortune. So you know the joke where one person spills the soup and the other one is the one that gets spilled on. But the point is that we use these terms very loosely, but there is a way that if somebody notices that things aren't going well for you, God forbid, but we all have ruts, it's just a cycle of life. There are things that we can do to counter that. Now, there were some sages at the end of the day, and we laugh at this idea, that would take the idea of a diary. And every day write everything they did during the course of the day. All of the conversations, all of the interactions with people, everything that they did, and analyze it. So a person needs to analyze his or her behaviors, what you're doing, what you could be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And as a result of that, the rabbis tell us you can annul the decree and turn around, as opposed to walking around and having your head down and say, there's a black cloud over my head. And, everywhere I step, I'm just, it's a puddle. There's ways to kind of to twist it around. And if you do that, basically, not to say it will always change, there's some people that are unfortunately more lucky than others. That's just the nature, yeah.
If I don't know if you want to take questions, how does this tie into the custom of if you feel you're trying to change your fortune, I guess luck's a bad word, to have all your mezuzah scrolls checked?
Correct. So those are one of the things you need to do. Right. Yes.
How does that tie in?
Yeah. So correct. So if you have something, so it doesn't go by just what your intent is. You have to be proactive. So if you have a mezuzah, we illustrated a number of stories where things were written incorrect in the mezuzah, that a person's fortune could be reversed, or a pair of tefillin that aren't kosher, or a pair of talit. So some people say, well, I gave it a good college try. God should recognize me for it. But you're responsible for your own maintenance. So you have to maintain the rituals that you are doing. And if you're not doing them, to start doing them. And if you are doing them, start to look and say, well, when was the last time I checked my mezuzahs? When was the last time I checked my tefillin? Maybe Zahava can help you check the strings on your talit, and she can help. Maybe the numbers are off. If the numbers are off, then it invalidates. So that's an idea. Now we're going to transfer now the famous Shimon Bar Yochai, the one that wrote the Zohar, speaks about the zodiacs. So there are zodiacs in Jewish law also. There are 12 tribes for the 12 months. And I'm going to go through all of them now. I'm going to tell you what each month represents. And don't worry, you're not going to get quizzed. I'm going to give you sensory overload tonight. I'm sorry, it's the last class, so I've got to throw the kitchen sink at you tonight, okay? So the first month, as you know, happens to be Nisan. Remember, the 7th month. We spoke about that in one of the earlier classes. The calendar, Nisan is the head of all new months. Nisan is known as Aries. In the Hebrew, is Tleh, or the ram. That corresponds to the tribe of Judah and the faculty of speech. Jews had to overcome the Egyptian deity, the Ram. And Judah also means thanks, thank you. It's a Thanksgiving term. And we're named, by the way, through the tribe of Judah. For a male, you have Yehuda, and for a female, Yehudit. But as a singular Jew,
Yehudi?
Yehudi, that comes from Judah. That's his name has got his name also has God's name in it. Because we've got to have Thanksgiving in there. Passover, we bring the Paschal lamb as an offering recited in the Haggadah. And this negates the very idol worship that we're doing in Egypt. So the month, the deity, the zodiac sign for that is the ram. Next month after is ER, which is Shor, in English, the Taurus, and the bull, the Taurus, the bull, corresponds to the tribe of Yisachar, one of the 12 tribes. They're known for their big creating a lot of scholars through their tribe and the faculty of thought. So we need to be very strong and stubborn like a bull and don't back down, which we are. We're taught in the Torah, even Moses complains to God and God complains to Moses. They were kind of buffers for one another. These people are very stiff-necked people. What does that mean when you're stiff-necked? You're dogged, you don't back down. You don't take no for an answer. So you don't let anything deter us. The month that we're coming to now, Sivan. Just a plug for tomorrow morning's minyan, Rosh Chodesh. You start at 7 or 7:15?
7:15.
You don't move it back. Okay, still 7:15. Okay. Tomorrow is the Rosh Chodesh, and you're going to be blessing the month of Sivan, which is a month of Shavuot. That is a month of Tuumim, Gemini, or twins in the Hebrew. Corresponds to the tribe of Zevulun, which supported Torahs and faculty of motion, movement. Now, there is an interesting idea that some charities use. Yisachar and Zevulun are brothers. One worked and one studied. So they present this option for giving charity so in other words, you're the worker and you're going to support somebody who's studying Torah. So Yisachar and Zevulun, that's how they promoted this idea. Next is Tammuz. Tammuz in Hebrew is a sartan, which is cancer, and also a crab. Corresponds to the tribe of Reuven and corresponds to the faculty of sight, which is what we're speaking about earlier. Like a crab hides, we should hide from the summer temptations and also not draw unnecessary attention to ourselves. Sometimes, as you know, unfortunately, some of the biggest scandals we've had recently, the first thing that people will say after they hear about the scandal is, oh, and he was a Jew. So we got to not draw unnecessary attention to ourselves. We've got to behave in a public manner when we're in public, and we don't draw any unnecessary attention because we're low-hanging fruit. Just have to look in the world we're living to now. Any opportunity is an opportunity to knock down the Jews. So why give them any more ammunition? The month of Av is the Ari, the lion, the Leo, and that corresponds to Shimon, and that also corresponds to the faculty of hearing. Nations like the Babylonians and the Romans destroyed both temples in this month. We must listen to the lessons that led to the destruction and learn some of the creative behavior, for example, needless hatred, for example, where we just hated each other for no reason, which led to the destruction. Elul is known for Betula or Virgo or the Virgin. Corresponds to God, and it's the month of repentance and purifying of our thoughts and also of our deeds in preparation for the high holidays, which is literally the next month. Tishrei is Moznaim, which is Libra, and also scales. This corresponds to Ephraim, to be fruitful, to be productive and make sure our actions yield positive results. One of the things we do Rosh Hashanah night, some people do, is have a pomegranate. Why?
So yeah, mitzvot.
13 seeds.
Right, plentiful, it's bountiful. We have many opportunity to do the mitzvot. Right. I don't know if you ever opened up a pomegranate and counted every seed. That would really be 613. Sometimes these things are metaphoric in nature, but the idea is plentiful. Moving along is after we get through Tishrei, we get to the month of Cheshvan, which is the Akrav, Scorpio or the Scorpion. And that corresponds to Menashe, and that is the faculty of smell. Month lacks a holiday and can be spiritually cold like snake venom. If we rearrange the word Menashe, take the Hebrew letters, and we do this throughout our teachings, you can come up with the word
Shama.
neshama, very good, which is soul. Always opportunities to flourish, even when you don't have a Jewish month in the month. You also can take the same letters and come up with the word Mishnah. So you can start in Mishnah. Kislev. Kislev is the Kashet, Sagittarius, the archer, and this corresponds to Benjamin, the warrior. This corresponds to faculty of sleep. And we propel the inspiration of Hanukkah in this story to overcome our spiritual slumber. Hanukkah is in the deep of winter, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes deeper. This year it's going to be very late again, right? Around New Year's Eve, corresponding with the Christmas time. It's very easy and tempting to say, I don't feel like going out today. Yeah, but what about the minion? Kenny's going to say, where were you? We needed you. We only had 8 people, 9 people, right? So it's very easy, and you're more rewarded. The Talmud tells us the more you put into something, our cliche is no pain, no gain, but it applies in our spiritual pursuits. The more time you put in and the more effort, even when it's difficult to, or there's a blizzard outside, or it's freezing cold, or I'm sure you still do it now, you get an email. There's a very small family in town, and they're all going to have 7 people at the grave. We need 4 people, 3 people, just as insurance policy to help say Kaddish. And the last thing you want to do is drive out to Chesterland when it's 6 degrees outside. But these are the kind of challenges we face in the month of Hanukkah. Tevet. Tevet is the Gedi, Capricorn, and the kid goat. Corresponds to Dan, and this is the faculty of anger. Now, anger in general is one of the things, generally speaking, Maimonides says you should do everything down the middle. You shouldn't do anything to one extreme. Anger is very, very discouraged. One thing when you want to put on a pretense for your kids, you give them a look, but not to the point where you really lose control. You know, where you really lose control, you lose color in your face, you use kind of language, you raise your voice. It's not a good thing to do, but the siege against Jerusalem began in this month due to the needless hatred of the Jews. That's the month of Tevet. That's the shortest fast day of the year when we have in Tevet, the 10th of Tevet, where the outer walls of Jerusalem started to get conquered. And we've got to judge each other favorably to give everybody the benefit of the doubt as best as we can. Now we're into the month of Shvat. Shvat is Aquarius, or also known as the water drawer. And this is to the tribe of Asher, faculty of taste. Most of the rain has already fallen in Israel for the season, and obviously given a chance for the land to start to produce its yield. As we know in Shvat, we have Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat is one of the 4 high holidays that we have each and every year. Rosh Chodesh La'ilanot, it's the Rosh Hashanah, La'ilanot, the holidays for the trees, and to eat the beautiful fruits that the land has been able to provide. Adar. Adar is the last month of the calendar year before you start Nisan again, so it's really month number 6, technically, is Dagim, Pisces or fish. This goes to the tribe of Naphtali. Fish are below the surface, they're covered by the sea. And the same way when you observe Purim, you don't see God's name in the story of Purim. So God performed all of these hidden miracles. It's what we call the outward miracle, like when the sea was split. That was an outward miracle. The inner miracles, the hidden miracles, like you've been hearing in the War of Israel. You'll hear all kind of stories. It was very inspirational. I heard one recently when they attacked on October 7th at the music festival. People just scattered all over. And a guy and 2 girls made it to a porta potty. And he started to daven. He was a Chiloni. He was just a secular Jew. He wasn't a religious man. And he promised, if God gets me out, I'm going to turn my life around and dedicate it to God. They shut up each one on both sides of them, and there's one touched. They could hear it. They could hear the bullets coming in. So these are what we call like a miracle that is there. People may explain and come up with all other theories. Time and time again, we're not worthy now to open miracles like God used to do. But if somebody, as we started the class with, is really looking and paying attention, it has to be beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's God's hand involved in protecting.
I pray to get out of porta potty every time I use.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Not the most pleasant places to be. So that's an idea just about the zodiacs. Just what the Kabbalah is saying. I wanted to develop a little bit, as we got some time left, on light. So it says in the very beginning of creation, when God was creating the world, and let there be light. And some should understand it and say, it should become light. Not just let it be light. We should interpret that. So what does it mean it should become light? Even darkness can become a source of wisdom and light, even in the darkness, a time of darkness. We are commanded to be a light to all of the nations, like what we call or goyim. Now we use this term goyim in more of a pejorative way. It's really not the most pleasant, but goyim literally means nations. When you say to somebody, oh, he's a goy, that just means he's a Gentile, but it has a certain coarseness to it. It has a little bit of a harsh tone. So it's a little softer way to say it, but we have to be the light to all the nations. We have to live by our own actions. Unfortunately, doesn't always work, as we're seeing now, but we still have to keep on trying. We can't go down to the level. Light and candles have been a mainstay of our religion. We discussed this idea a little bit before. We bring in Shabbat with the candles. And then we do Havdalah with the candles. We do Yom Tov with the candles. At the beginning of the Shiva period, we light a candle. There are some, by the way, when preparing for this, I never knew this custom. Some people only light a Shiva candle for 1 week, and they're done. Some have the custom to have a candle lit for the entire Euro morning. So up to 11 months, some 30 days if they lost a spouse. That's just the custom. But I'm going to explain to you in a little bit, there's a connection between the soul and the light of the flame. King Solomon wrote, a man's soul is God's candle. I want to say that again. It's really a beautiful thought. A man's soul is God's candle. The soul is spiritual and compared to the light force. And we're told in Kabbalistically reasoning that the soul is very attracted to the light of a flame, which is why we light the flame. It's called Ner Neshama. So any synagogue you can go back to in the beginning or wherever you grew up, we don't do it here anymore. Even the old Yortzeit wall, we didn't. But most of the older Yortzeit walls always had like a light bulb. Do you remember those Yortzeit walls in some of the older synagogues? You had like a little light bulb and you turn a light next to the name. Because there's a direct correlation between the light that a soul feels. The souls can sense the light when it sees a light. It's always good to light a candle, and not for your immediate significant other. Let's say you know God, your grandmother's Yortzeit, your uncle's Yortzeit. Anytime it's a Yortzeit, the night before you should definitely light a candle. And say in your mind that this candle is being lit for, and think the person's name. If you know the name, better say it, better obviously articulate it. Otherwise, if you don't, just think it, but say I'm lighting the candle for the individual. The Kabbalists come up with a different idea, which is, God empowers one of the angels called the Satan. And the Satan's job is to basically find as much dirt on us as possible. His job is to find all negative stuff. So the Kabbalists suggest when you light a flame, kind of scares away the Satan, kind of keeps you out of the realm. It gets out of your zip code and sends you to bother somebody else. So the candle, as I said, is lit on behalf of the soul, and a similar idea to Shabbat candles, that there's an inspiration and a holiness. Now, when you light on behalf of someone, you don't make a blessing. There's no blessing to be made. Even when you light, God forbid, a Shiva candle, you don't make a blessing. Unlike what you do for Shabbat. And
where do we first hear about the lighting candles for Shabbat? Where is that?
well, we're told that Sarah had it in her tent. But I'm going to tell you in a minute that the first flame was created for Adam. So when Adam was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, and it got dark, he panicked. He thought the whole world's coming to an end. So God taught him how to make fire. And when he made fire, the first thing he said is, he made a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, borei me'orei ha'esh. And that's the reason why we say it in Havdalah, because of the Adam's experience. And according to the Talmud, he was the first one. But we're told that Sarah had the candles already lit in her tent.
What are they? I have a question though. If they, all right, so they had a bracha over the candles, but you light candles. I mean, you needed candles for light the rest of the time, the rest of the week. So
If you're using your candle,
we distinguish. We have Shabbat candles, okay? But the rest of the week, we have electricity, but they had.
right, so you're not using the candle. The distinction is very simply, you're not using the candles for a holy cause, you're using it for a necessity to be able to see in your house. So there was no reason to be making a blessing because you're just using it for necessity instead of a holy cause. So there was no reason to make a blessing. A matter of fact, you shouldn't, because then it's a blessing in vain. So you shouldn't do it. Now, the very famous Rabbi, the Tur, says the reason that the woman lights the candles and not the men, don't shoot the messenger, that's what he says, because the woman sinned first.
Oh.
Woman sinned first, Eve sinned first, and she took light out of the world, because originally mankind was supposed to live forever. That was the plan.
Would be so boring.
Well, some men do light, some men do light, if you know, some people do, but the commandment is on the woman. So by woman lighting, she brings light back into the world, and it's a corrective measure to the original sin. Okay. Now here's an interesting idea that I just recently came upon. My teacher, who I study with, a good friend of mine, but is my teacher, my study partner. And I love the reverse of the roles, because I get to ask questions and I just get to be quiet. And he's absolutely brilliant. So when you light your Hanukkah candles, you made your blessing. There's a custom, a mystical custom, to sit and stare at the candles. Pull up your chair and meditate on the candles. So now the idea behind this, it's a fascinating idea, is why are we lighting Hanukkah candles?
The miracle.
For the miracle that happened where?
In Israel.
Where?
Modi.
Over there.
And the Beit HaMikdash, they found enough oil, right? So you're transporting the Beit HaMikdash to your own home. It's a mystical belief. Every time you sit there, you're supposed to sit there and stare at the holiness of the candles, which are being infused with a blessing. Stare at the candles and say, I'm bringing the Beit HaMikdash into my house right now. And it's an opportunity to, my rabbi's mother said when she first saw her son doing it, she thought he was crazy. Like, what are you doing? And what are you looking at? So she walks around this way, she walks around. I just see the candles being lit like. So he had to explain it later on, this mystical custom of really focusing on
You can't even talk, you just look at the candle.
yeah, you're supposed to have just to meditate on the candles about bringing in the Beit HaMikdash into your house, because it's no longer in existence.
We used to watch.
And your thought process should be not only of bringing it into your house, the thought process is going to be, one day we'll see the candles, the menorah lit again in the Beit HaMikdash, we'll have everything when the third temple comes. Okay,
Aaron,
I found that I always do that, but I didn't know that there was any kind of reason for it. But lots of times when we do, when anything exciting happens, even a wedding, you always spend another minute or two to enjoy it. Otherwise, you're lighting and running. You don't get to see the
Well,
candle.
that's a good reason. And by the way, we light a candle at a wedding. It's a custom when the parents of the bride or groom come down with a candle. There's a connectivity. Once again, there's a direct connectivity, not to the human element, but the spiritual side, because of the light that's inside each and every person.
we comment. Shabbos candles, when we bless the Shabbos candle and then we get the table and all that. The table itself, with the highlighters and salt and all that, so it's like the Mizbeach.
Correct.
The Mikdash. So we also bring in the.
Correct. That's why you got to always treat your table like a mizbeach, like an altar, because when you eat on Shabbat, it's as though you're having food from the actual altar in the temple. Now, I'm going to take you a little bit to an esoteric idea, so bear with me. When Cain and Abel, or Cain and Hevel, I don't want to offend any purists, whichever way you like it. Some say tomato, some say tomato, whichever way you want to take it. They each brought a sacrifice. Cain was not as good as his brother Abel, and God didn't accept his. He accepted his brother. How did Cain respond to that? With misplaced anger. What did he do? He murdered his brother, the first murder in the Torah. He was so angry with his brother, instead of taking his grievance to God. And God said, what are you upset about? You could have done better, and you should have done better. You skimped. You're supposed to give your best to God, and you kind of gave me your second tier for production. When Hevel, the one saw God's flame coming down, he gazed at God's light, so to speak. When the flame came down to take his sacrifice, he looked at it. You're not supposed to gaze at God. Some of the rabbis explained, why didn't God protect him from his brother? Just say, what are you doing? Stop roughhousing. You're not going to kill him. Stop. God could have come up and stopped it. He didn't. And some of the rabbis suggest because he gazed at God's presence. Now, fast forward. Moses is a shepherd. He's working for his father-in-law, Jethro. He's bringing the animals. And he's done his thing. All of a sudden, what's written there? The bush is on fire, but it's not burning. It's not being consumed. What does Moshe do right away? He turns away. He doesn't look at it. Right away, he said, it's disrespectful. I need to turn away, and he turns away as they're speaking to him from the bush. What does it have to do with the story of Cain and Abel? So I'm going to give you an idea that you may have thought is a Christian idea, but it's a Jewish idea. We do believe in reincarnation. Some people think it's a non-Jewish. It's called Gilgul Neshama. So what happens is, Gilgul Neshama. So the Gilgul, the soul has to come back. If a soul goes through a lifetime and doesn't achieve what it needs to, besides having to atone for his or her sins, God says, make it right now. I'm putting you in another body. There's 5 levels of a soul in a person. I don't want to get too specific, but within an individual, there's 5. I'll tell you what the first 3 are. One is called nefesh, one is called neshama, which we're all familiar with. Another part is called ruach. The other 2 have to work towards a much higher level to get to all 5. When the reincarnate comes back, it takes part of the soul over, not all of it. And the purpose of this is to make amends for something. So when you say to somebody, we use a term very loosely, this person's an old soul. And they very well could be, because they lived in another lifetime. You heard some people say, I've heard someone say, well, I'm sure I lived in the Victorian era. I just feel it. I have this affinity. I want to read everything about that time period, and I have a connectivity. So the Gilgul Neshama is a way to make amends. And I'll tell you a true story, and I heard it the source, and that's from my father. I was a very young boy at the time, so I wasn't there. I was probably singing in this choir. But my father told me a story, and you can't make this up. He was leading Con Nidre in South Africa, in Johannesburg. 3 years in a row this happened. A dog ran into the sanctuary and stayed by his feet as you're singing Con Nidre.
Dog.
A dog. The next year, they said the ushers were not letting it in. And this dog, somehow, way, shape, and form, came again the next year. And as soon as Con Nidre was over, left the building. So now, we believe that reincarnates don't only come in the form of humans, come back in animals and also inanimate objects.
So who did your father think that was?
He had no idea. He said, "I'm happy it didn't bite me." That was his biggest concern, you know. I had to get through Con Nidre, the most pressure-packed time of the year. You have a dog sitting at your feet and the choir singing, and you can't stop the service. So he just went through it, and the thing ran off. Next year, he said it was there again. He felt comfortable that I know this thing's not going to bother me. Clearly, you could say maybe the soul needed to be in shul, maybe it didn't come to shul. But we are told from the famous Ari, who's a rabbi in Safad, one time was walking with his primary disciple. He said, "You see that rock there? There's a soul in the rock." So maybe people have to walk on the soul. I don't know what that's about. But we do believe in Gilgal Neshama. Another good example for you to tell you, is Elijah and Pinchas. Pinchas was a zealot, and so was Elijah. So we're told they're one and the same. Their soul, sometimes the soul comes back, even for a holy cause. But most of the time, the belief is that there is a reincarnate, and the neshama comes back. And now this is a little bit of an interesting idea, and it's not going to be something that's palatable for people. But the Kabbalists explain sometimes when a child dies at a very young age, it helped them cope with this idea that the soul had to be back for 30 days or for a year, or God forbid, like for Robert's grandson, the child came for a minimum time period. They did what they needed to in this world, and now God wants it back. Now, of course, the parents are grieving and that, oh, why couldn't it be somebody else? Why did it have to be my child? But that's the way they explain when you have a sudden, somebody dies well before their time, that the soul is ready to come back to God's embrace, to the light of God. Now, we use another term in terms of light. I was thinking about it, I was putting it together, and I started to really think about how this really impacts us. You know, how sometimes we use it disparaging. You describe someone, you know, the lights are on and nobody's home. It's very lightheaded, you know, or we come up with all these things that relate to light. Light is a major piece of who we are. And if somebody truly understands what their mission is in this world, I'm sure you've walked away from people, because I have, and I said, they radiate light. I feel it. I can't tell you exactly, but I feel they're just in a different level than everyone else. They understand what they're doing. They just got an aura about them. They give off a light. So light is a intrinsic part. Now, when is the earliest time you can daven in the morning? I'm switching gears, but still dealing with light.
It is light.
So if you can see a friend of yours and recognize them from a distance, but by natural light, then you're allowed to start davening. Conversely, Shabbat, which I didn't mention, when Shabbat is over, we count the 3 stars. If you don't know the time, let's say you don't have access, you can just go out and see 3 stars. Excuse me. As you see more stars, it's clear to understand that it's getting darker and darker, the shades of darkness. As you see more stars, why the number 3? 3 is what's called a chazakah. So sometimes people get bent out of shape. Let's say somebody did the same Haftorah 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row, or they had the same ark opening. And all of a sudden you take it away from them. But it was mine. It's mine. I own it. But once you've done something 3 times, it establishes a pattern. So 3 stars, and Shabbat is over. So we sometimes hide behind sunglasses, but we're also told, as we know this to be true, the eyes are the windows of the soul. There's light. The light that you see and the light that you internalize. The soul and the light are intrinsically tied together. And therefore, you'll hear stories all the time of somebody that had a near-death experience. Somebody had a near-death experience and they'll say, I saw a tunnel and there was light and I felt the light pulling me. And it's totally in cohesion what I'm saying with what we're teaching tonight. We believe very firmly about the light, like the light of the rainbow. These are all lights of God. They're all sparks of God that we have within us. Now, I just running out of time, unfortunately. The idea of fire, Aish. Fire is used to purify. Fire is used to warm. Fire is used to cook. And unfortunately,
Bill,
damage, burn. Look what's going on in the north of Israel, it's burning down forests right now. It's actually one of the 4 capital punishments. When the Beit Din wanted to put somebody to death, depending on the nature of his or her sin, fire was used. Consumption of somebody practicing witchcraft. But fire is also a major component, which is why, you don't have it here. Okay, the doors are closed. We have the Ner Tamid. And not the donation wall that's out in the atrium. I mean, the one in front of the ark. Why do we have eternal light? Some people in the finance committee may tell you we don't like that idea. Turn off the electricity at night. Why are you leaving the lights on all night? Zahava, you look a little perplexed. I'm sure you must think about this as you turn from one side of your pillow to the next at night. Why do we leave the light on all night?
I will tell you what I was told many years ago,
Sure.
all right, by the shamus at Park Synagogue, that it's a protective device for the Torahs.
It could be indirectly, and I'll tell you why.
Okay,
The reason why we do it is because the Mizbeach always had an internal flame. There was always a flame lit under the altar, including when they traveled through the desert. One of the miracles happened when they were going through the desert. They had a cloth covered the Mizbeach, and there was a flame underneath, and it didn't burn through the cloth. So there was eternal light, which is why we have the eternal flame. Another idea which could be, it could be a protection because we're thinking about the Mizbeach. I don't know if he was alluding to that or not, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Based upon my teaching earlier, we should give people the benefit of the doubt. One of the things we're talking about in terms of the lights being on all the time, it's also a lesson to us as people that we got to be on. So I'll tell you when I was at BJ a couple of years ago, around this time, we'd get a text or a call from the executive director, and he would say, you guys are the last line of defense right now. So-and-so is leaving. They don't want to stay on. Can you please give him a call? We know you have a relationship. You did the bar mitzvahs, the bat mitzvahs, the weddings and funerals or whatnot. So I would call whoever first man up, whoever got the call, whoever had a better relationship would call the individual and say, like, I heard you're leaving. We'd really love to keep you here. What's going on? Is there something we can make right? And I remember a number of occasions, the same conversation happened, which really floored me. And the person said to me, well, you guys are wonderful. There's nothing you're doing wrong. I said, why aren't you staying? Yeah, well, our kids are out of the home and we just got to take a break. I said, what do you mean a break? Now I figure I got nothing to lose, right? Right? They're already got 1 foot out the door already, right? They're already on Fairmount Boulevard. So why not say what I have to say? What do you mean a break? Well, it's like, we take a break from membership. So I said, let me ask you a question. So you got kids and maybe they're grown and they're not in confirmation anymore and no more bar mitzvahs. What better way to show them how important it is to belong to a shul when you don't have to, but you choose to anyway? I said, there's no such thing as taking a break from God. You may get angry with God sometimes. Everyone gets angry with God. It's normal. You have terrible things happen in a person's life and you can't make sense of it. But you work it out like you do with a relationship with a significant other. There's no such thing. So the Ner Tamid is a reminder, we have to be continual in our relationships with God. There's no such thing, I'm checking out, I'll see you next year, because once they're gone, and ironically, the same people I would see high holidays, I would sneak into the building. And it really used to irk me because some people more than me, I was a little bit more forgiving, but if it's so terrible, you need a break, like people are up here paying dues member. So they buy tickets somewhere else or just come in. I guess in their mind, they felt like once a Jew, always a Jew. Once a member, always a member, regardless if you renew or not. I don't know what the mindset was, but the idea is
That's
that
probably why the dog showed up at your father's services.
maybe,
He was a lapsed member, you want to pay dues.
you know what, you never know why those things happen. But ultimately, I'll finish with this because we're running. I've got so much more. I want to just talk a little bit about Lag BaOmer, which has happened. Lag BaOmer, we have bonfires. So why do we have a bonfire? It's not just to have s'mores and a good time and bring some of your old buddies around the fireplace and open a can of Heineken's or Coors or whatever your favorite beer. I don't even know. I got to talk to my friend Gary, who's an expert in IPs. Bring whatever you want and sit around. What's this custom?
Rock Shabbat.
Right. So what's the idea? So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the one that gave us the 12 zodiacs tonight, the information, was considered a very holy light himself, to the point he achieved such levels when he hid from the Romans for 12 years. He hid in a cave with his son. And they subsisted on one of the foods that we eat on Tu B'Shvat, which is boxer. You know what boxer is? Or what do they call it? St. John's bread? The one where you crack your teeth on, where it's like, they had a carob tree with a little stream. And they were in the ground, and God would send angels every day to study with them. And he came out immensely holy from that experience, to the point where students couldn't even look at him because he had a light and aura about him. On his last day of his life, he wanted to share some more secrets because he was learning according to all of those studies directly with Elijah. So imagine this, we're learning from one another. He says to Elijah, well, what do they say up in heaven about this piece of Torah? And he's hearing Torah, the way they're studying it up there, bringing it down here, and he had some secrets to share. And we're told that a fire enveloped all around him and his students, not burning them, but no one could come in. The sun stood still and did not set until he finished teaching. So one of the reasons is because of that fire that enveloped him the last day of his teaching. On his yard site, we light a bonfire in commemorating that event. We're also told that in regards to Shimon Bar Yochai, that he was referred to as a holy candle. He's a very holy, and he brought light and Torah to the world. Lastly, I'll say to you, and this is a plug for Harriet, who works tirelessly hard, and she didn't tell me to say this for full disclosure. You have an opportunity that you won't have again till next year, God willing, unless we're in Jerusalem. And that is to come here Tuesday night. And the very thing we've been doing for the same 6 weeks is, it's not going to take 6 weeks Tuesday night, it's just one night.
12 hours.
But 31 teachers, if I'm mistaken or not.
Yes.
31 teachers and all kind of Torah that you want to learn, and come and learn and study, whether it's one class, 2 classes. I think you are offering virtual option or no?
Select classes are streamed and those are listed on the website.
All right, so visit the website for more information, but the very thing that we've been doing for the last 6 weeks, you get collectively one night, which is the celebration. Torah is considered light, Torah aura. Torah is the ultimate light. So mitzvah is considered a lamp, and Torah is considered the flame. So you have an opportunity And if you're a night owl, there's no better place. They'll even bribe you. I don't know if they got a nice cheesecake coming in again this year.
Rachel Schwartz is making her homemade.
Oh, you haven't lived until you eat at Rachel's pastries. Rachel and Zahav. I don't wanna.
Just at midnight.
Rachel,
So,
Yeah.
you'll be in Israel, but if you got an opportunity, in all seriousness, you should really come and study. It's a great way to bring in the next holiday, the holiday of actually the giving of the Torah. And I know Harriet does it with her mother in mind, to bring her mother's memory, which is the ultimate aliyah to her neshama. She was a very wonderful person, Harriet's mother. And ultimately for yourselves, forget about the food. You got access to some of the finest minds in the city. And you should really come, whether it's for an hour or two, however long you can stay, or you want to sleep here, you can have the bride's room. I'm speaking out of turn. I don't work here anymore, but I'm sure I know some people that are still would do.
To stick with your theme, and some people come then or come back, to be outside in Linden Courtyard, when we do shacharit as the sun is coming up, is everything you've been saying.
Yeah, the sunrise service is a beautiful service. And by the way,
Spectacular.
it's the most optimum way to daven. So when you daven that early, you're showing God, I'm willing to be sleep deprived. I'm willing to make you my number one priority ahead of anything else. So when you can come and do a sunrise service wherever you are, but here, especially Shavuot, you really should take advantage, go online, reach out to Harriet. I'm sure she'll give you some links. And on that note, I want to wish you guys a wonderful summer. I'll answer in a sec. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to study with these last few weeks.
Thank you.
And just try, and it's never too late for anyone to study.
I'd like to put a little,
Anyone can reach out, and anyone can do their own thing online, in person. There's all kind of possibilities, but here it's being spoon-fed to you. All you got to do is just stay, show up in the building here, and you will really be enlightened, no doubt.
I'd like to read something I just wrote while you've been talking.
Go ahead, go ahead.
This is directed to you. On behalf of myself, and I presume many others, we thank you for an inspiring 6 evenings. Your enlightening presentations have been thought-provoking, presenting panoramas of history while otherwise may not have been considered. Thank you for your scholarship and your piety. Your absence is only amplified by the classes you've constructed.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
Me too.
Where's the custom,
Go ahead, we have a question, go
where's
ahead.
the custom coming?
This is called overtime now. Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, I'm just making light. I'm making light, pun intended, go ahead.
Where's the custom coming to Lag BaOmer to cut the hair with the first cut, the shirt?
Yeah.
Sharing. When they cut the hair for the.
Up shear.
Lag BaOmer, they.
I think, from my understanding, because you couldn't cut the hair for over a month because of the Omer.
Yes.
That was the first break in the Omer that you could bring it. Number one. Number two, it was a very pious and holy place to do it at because of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai's grave is so holy, and because of who he was, to do both, to bring it there and to celebrate. And I think on the fact that you, depending what cycle of the Omer you keep, some people don't get a haircut for 7 weeks. Thank God, my wife would have really hung me up by my toes if I would have done that. But there's different customs where you come from the second night of Passover until Lag BaOmer. Some go from Rosh Chodesh to the end. But I think the custom goes because that's one of the first openings. And
wait 3 years.
Why sleep?
3 years has to do with the fruit of a tree. You're not allowed to touch the fruit of a tree for the first 3 years.
That's what
Oh,
they
that's the
went
up shear.
The child is considered like your fruit, so to
Okay.
speak. So you're not allowed to have fruits. When you plant, you're not supposed to eat the fruits of a tree for the first 3 years. And the cutting is tied to the fruit of a tree. That I can tell you definitely.
But I do have another question.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Shavuot, why do we supposed to eat dairy, or is that just here?
Elise Braverman is teaching that at 1 o'clock.
Okay, but in Israel, I know they do eat, it's a big.
So Halav is a gematria of 40.
Okay.
And they spent 40 years in the desert till they got the Torah. So the number is 40 is in conjunction with milk. So that's one of the reasons that you do have also it's a land of milk and honey flowing. Eretz Zavad Chalav. The land so ties to the 7 species.
Okay, but I can do for any holidays.
Well, nobody said you shouldn't have it, but this is the holiday of the giving of the Torah. The other ones aren't.
Okay,
Pesach is not the giving of the Torah, and neither Sukkot. Shavuot is its own Matan Torah, which deals with coming into Israel. So,
but I think because of that, you should be eating meat and more.
well, what you have,
You know
you
what I
can
mean?
do 3 out of 4 meals. That's 75% of your meals.
Back after.
Because that's the holiday of the.
Yeah. Well, but Chalav, but primarily, I know Chalav has to do with the 40 years and then in the desert.
All
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Curious to hear.